Welcome back to the channel. Thank you for checking out this video. Hope you're having a fantastic day. So, we got a little fun drama that we have to talk about. As you know, a few days ago, I did a video on Sheryl Swoopes. Maybe it was last week, and her comments on the WNBA podcast. That's important, where she talked about the Fever's 2-0 start after the Olympic break and how well they were playing. And then she proceeded to mention a number of players and never mentioned Caitlin Clark, which, of course, is absolutely ridiculous. But if you know the history of Sheryl Swoopes, and again, I've talked about that on this as well in the past, it doesn't surprise anyone. Of course, she got a lot of backlash for that. And even Stephen A. Smith called her out. Now, we're just going to play a brief part of this to give you an idea, because I want to hear you a couple of things. I want you to hear some of the criticism, but also the fact that he was very, very complimentary. But we know from the past with Elle Duncan, Sheryl Swoopes cannot have any criticism of what she says, or she will push back, and she forced Elle Duncan to apologize, to kneel and hold out the hand in supplication, to bend the knee, however you want to phrase it. So we're going to take a little bit of a listen here to what Stephen A. Smith says, because he finally got around to calling out Sheryl Swoopes for this as well. It was not just YouTubers. How about that? Maybe we're having some influence. And this is crazy, because if you pay attention to the channel, complimenting Stephen A. Smith isn't exactly my thing, but here we are, folks.
You know basketball. You know basketball better than me. You know basketball than any of the pundits. You know basketball better than most of the men that play basketball. There is no way in hell you just accidentally left Caitlin Clark's name out of that soliloquy that you dropped about the Indiana Fever. Stop it. You know that. Stop it. And then y'all wonder what happened. See, remember when I was on the air on ESPN and I got into it with Monica McNutt? Stephen A., I'm talking to you, Stephen A., if you had promoted the WNBA more, if you had talked about it more, they would have played more games. Like I had the power to go up to ESPN and say, directors and producers and cameramans and everybody else flocked to the WNBA at the time when it wasn't nearly as popular as it was today.
Okay, now let's dig in. Now, as you heard from that beginning, he was very, very complimentary of Sheryl Swoopes. In another clip, he actually calls her a wonderful person, which I have not seen any evidence of that. Again, she has repeatedly lied about Caitlin Clark to diminish her accomplishments in college. She got relieved of her head coaching position at Loyola after an investigation into mistreatment of her players, young women who are greatly shaped and influenced by their athletic coaches at that time, whether it be high school or college, as they grow into adults. And she took that responsibility and destroyed it. But Sheryl Swoopes, again, despite the compliments from Stephen A. Smith, and by the way, where's Monica McNutt? Remember these ladies earlier in the season when the Chicago Sky spent a lot of time ahead of the Indiana Fever, and they talked about how Rookie of the Year was going to be the team that finished higher, the team that made the playoffs, because they didn't even think that the Fever would make the playoffs. Now the Sky may not even make the playoffs, and all of a sudden they're silent. But anyway, that's a topic for another time. Sheryl Swoopes went right after Stephen A. Couldn't call him up, although I'm sure she has Stephen A.'s number. You talk about whomever and whatever you want on your podcast, correct? So why can't I? Also, did you listen to the entire episode? Nope. I have a personal relationship with these players, and they deserve recognition as well. Okay, so first of all, Stephen A. Smith has Stephen A. Smith podcast, and he has First Take on ESPN. Sheryl, you went on a WNBA podcast to talk about the WNBA. You talked about the Indiana Fever. This happened after the first two games from the break, so they went 2-0 with two big wins. And you mentioned multiple players by name and did not mention Caitlin Clark's name. Yes, you rightly should be called out for that because you are on there on a WNBA podcast. Can I mention that enough? And you did not mention Caitlin Clark while talking about multiple players for the Indiana Fever. There is no one who doesn't think that is ridiculous if they are being honest. By the way, I noticed how you assume that Stephen A didn't listen to the whole thing. And by the way, this last part, so what? First of all, I don't believe you have a personal relationship with, I don't know, Lexi Hull. Maybe you've talked to her once. I don't know. But personal relationships suggest more than that. And even if you do, so what? Because you have a personal relationship with a player, they must have their name mentioned on a WNBA podcast. Doesn't matter who they are, what team they play for, how good they are, if they're sitting the bench without ever playing. Because you have a personal relationship, they deserve that, right? They deserve the entitlement of that. Absolutely ridiculous. So, of course, guess what, folks? Elle Duncan got involved in this. That's right, Elle Duncan. Remember Elle Duncan? She herself had a very mild criticism of Sheryl Swoopes, making comments about Caitlin Clark in the Indiana Fever. Very mild. And was also very complimentary of Sheryl Swoopes. And boom, within 24 hours, she was apologizing. I had to pause there and collect the words and make sure I didn't use ones I didn't want to use. I already did this video once, and it was like 25 minutes, and it was a little spicy. But she is at it again because she is going to defend. As Ken says, Elle Duncan making excuses for Sheryl Swoopes yet again. She's right. There's no room for racist threats on either side. It's basketball, people. That being said, to ignore the history of what Swoopes has said, and he goes on, and we're going to listen to a little bit of Elle and what she has to say.
We can, specifically the Caitlin Clark topic is such a lightning rod topic that it can be hard to figure out how you're going to navigate it. And some people who have been on the receiving end of racism and threats and nastiness, you could understand might want to avoid the topic altogether. Now,
okay, first of all, before we get a little further, because she goes in a little while and I want to address this point. Have you checked out what Caitlin Clark supporters have gotten Elle Duncan? Have you checked that out? And by the way, if you want to avoid talking about Caitlin Clark, maybe don't be employed by any sports media such as, be on a WNBA podcast where it's your job to talk about the WNBA if you can't talk about Caitlin Clark. Or also, maybe when you do, don't lie about everything that's easily checked. Don't say when you want to diminish her college record because she broke your NCAA tournament scoring record and you want to diminish her because you are jealous. Don't say she took 40 shots a game when she took 20. Don't say she was 25 years old when she graduated, barely 22. Don't say she played 5, maybe 6 years when she played 4. So don't say that she took much longer to break Kelsey Plum's NCAA scoring record when she actually did it faster and did it in fewer games. Maybe that is a good idea, Elle Duncan, because that is where the pushback comes from. The pushback doesn't come on objective analysis about the strengths and weaknesses of a player or how they played in a certain game. The pushback comes from the lies and the nonsense that is constantly spewed by the likes of Sheryl Swoopes.
I am a glutton for punishment. I don't mind it. I'll keep bringing it up because
You'll keep bringing it up and then apologize to Sheryl Swoopes when you call her out and you're correct the first time.
That's our job. And that's what we do as journalists, especially in this space. And because let's be real, she's the biggest storyline in the WNBA this year, amongst other very big storylines, but she still, in terms of mainstream, is the most important thing.
There are no other big storylines. And I don't mean that to diminish what's going on or to say players aren't playing well or whatever. Nafisa Collier's having a great year. She'll probably overtake Asia Wilson for MVP. But my point is, so many people know about that wouldn't if there was no Caitlin Clark. So the stories would exist. They would not be big.
I just want us to leave a little bit of space for that understanding as well, and know that trying to beat people to death over this view or this subject, trying to batter them, trying to attack them, trying to wait. I mean, we've got so-called quote unquote journalists just like laying in wait, ready to pounce on anyone who has any perceived hate, ready to attack them, ready to send their missives to attack you. And it can, to some people, feel incredibly daunting to the point where they just don't want to talk about it at all. So
Okay, so Elle, self-awareness. Do you realize what you just described is what happened to you from Sheryl Swoopes? You laid a mild and valid criticism on Sheryl Swoopes in discussing Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever. And then that is exactly what happened to you. And what did you do? You apologized. You had nothing to apologize for, but you apologized. And it wasn't Caitlin Clark fans that came after you. Well, until the apology. It was Sheryl Swoopes who came after you.
I'm leaving space for people like that, whoever they may be, that maybe have gotten to the point where they're like, I am damned if I do, I'm damned if I don't, I'm just not going to bring it up at all, and I'm going to focus on all the other storylines, because certainly it's not as if that narrative is missing.
Okay, again, find another job. I guess that's the best way I can put it. If you can't be in sports media to where you are going to discuss the WNBA. And by the way, this whole thing is a deflection, because if you look at sports media in general, if you look at almost any topic in general, and anybody who has a platform where you're going to have opinions and make statements, especially talking about other people, even though you're trying to be objective and talking about athletes and teams, you are going to get criticism. That is the reality of the situation. And if that is not what you want, if you cannot handle that, that is perfectly fine. But then you need to be out of the space. You need a different job. You can't have a job to talk about the WNBA and never mention Caitlin Clark because you don't want the backlash. And by the way, the backlash comes from everything. Like this, right? Didn't I tell you, see, this is all planned stuff. Didn't I tell you yesterday that Sheryl Swoopes didn't want to mention Caitlin Clark's name for a very good reason? Elle Duncan summed up everything perfectly. She was absolutely right about everything she said. Everything people say about Caitlin, they might get attacked. So Swoopes and other people just want to avoid the topic altogether. Again, not true. Swoopes got pushback because she constantly lied. Elle Duncan got pushback because she told the truth about Swoopes. And then when she got called out by Swoopes, she apologized, even though she had nothing to apologize for. And let's not forget, this is the internet. I hate to break it to people, but right or wrong, frustrating or not, if you are on it, you are going to get attacked. You can make the statement, I like puppies. And that's it. And if enough people see it, you will inevitably get someone who attacks you personally just for saying, I like puppies. I get attacked, Elle Duncan. Me, because I have a little tiny YouTube channel. I covered Kennedy Carter and her dirty play against Marina Mabrey. And simply because Kennedy Carter tans better than Marina Mabrey, I got called an ist. Now, I would have covered it the exact same way if the roles were reversed. But that doesn't matter to people. And again, that's the internet. And you know what? Sometimes you do just ignore it because you're going to get a lot of crazy people. And sometimes, yeah, stuff has to call. You have to call them out. And is it frustrating? Absolutely. But it is not specific to Caitlin Clark, and it is not specifically in one direction. I mean, how about this, Elle Duncan? By the way, anytime I even mention Angel Reese's name, despite at times being complimentary, I get attacked. Elle Duncan, should I never mention Angel Reese now because I'll get attacked? How about this? I mentioned Angel Reese here. People think I'm hating when I say she'll be gone in 5 years because she's slow, uncoordinated, awkward, and unathletic. This is not a missed layup like you'd see from Mitchell or even Wallace. Look at how she shoots it, completely uncoordinated, can't even use good form. And that was on this layup, was what I was responding to. She just sort of tosses it up from her waist. She wasn't even, I don't even think she was just kind of hoping that she was close enough it was going in. Her takeoff, her two steps were awkward. But again, look, you can disagree, and that's the point, and that's fine. You can absolutely disagree with what I said, but there is nothing in there that is a personal attack on Angel Reese. This could be about any athlete. This is what I see from her on the court. You can disagree. You can say, well, if she gets, that's not her fault because she needs good coaching. That's fine. I will say this. Yeah. Angel Reese got messed up by her coaching every step of the way to be able to become a professional player and not be able to properly shoot a layup, not be able to properly shoot a shot from 5 or 6 feet away. Terrible fundamentals. Yes, I absolutely agree that coaching plays a huge role in there. So from the time she was little up through college, unless she ignored all her coaches, then yeah, a lot of blame goes on the coaches, 100%. But as you can see, no hate, no anything. You may disagree with my comments there. That is fine. But it is what I'm seeing from her as a basketball player. Here's the response I got. Elle Duncan. Yeah, the league leader in rebounding as a rookie is going to be gone in 5 years. We know where a lot of those rebounds come from. But here's where it gets good. Some of you made mother effers on here need to thank God for the internet because you'd be slapped back in time faster than This Is Us if you said some of this stupid bleep, but in the streets. So, Elle Duncan, for my non-personal attack analysis of Angel Reese as a basketball player, as an athlete, really, more so than a basketball player, but either way, this is a threat of physical violence. Okay, got that, Elle Duncan? And we had someone follow up. I'm not impressed when she misses 5 straight layups and gets her own rebound, but whatever you say, tough guy. And he responded to that too. I never tweeted you, tough guy. Guess you took it personal, or you must have replied on your burner. I guess insinuating that it's me with another account. I wouldn't give him that much time. By the way, keep making, hey, this is for all of you. That's why I wanted to scroll down here real quick. Keep making your crappy podcast for the 19 cousins you have that click on it. That's all of you. You are my 19 cousins. And by the way, I have to, right here, before we wrap this up, I have to thank you. I really, really do appreciate you because I know the amount of time it takes for 19 of you to create 7,500 YouTube accounts and then subscribe to the channel. That is a lot of work, and I appreciate every single one of you, all 19 of you, for taking the time to finish such an amazing and difficult project. You would slap someone for saying something bad about Angel Reese offense? Wild. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, this is just crazy. But I gotta thank them. I mean, like I said, it's an ongoing soap opera. It makes it a lot easier to create content when you got these crazy people talking about this stuff. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Stephen A. Will Stephen A apologize? I actually don't think he will. So that's a step in the right direction. I think this is the wrong person. If this was Elle Duncan or, I don't know, Andrea Carter or Monica McNutt, Sheryl Swoopes could probably get an apology. I don't think she's going to get one from Stephen A. Smith. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below on Stephen A., on Sheryl, on Elle, on all this crazy nonsense going back and forth. And again, you saw with the commenter about Sheryl Swoopes and Elle Duncan, right? It's always fans of Caitlin Clark are horrible people. Everyone else is wonderful. This is, again, Sheryl Swoopes being a bully, and then when she's called out on it, playing victim. That's the playbook. Bully, get a response, play victim. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for checking out this video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will talk to you later.